Welcome to We the People. My name is Kiwana McKinney Ford. This program is in support of Law and Order. We will drill down on the importance of gun violence prevention and the power of forensic evidence. Joining me are political candidates and stakeholders who will share their view. So to get started, I'm going to introduce our political candidates, starting with Gary Messino, candidate for City Council, District 10. How are you, Gary?
I'm great. I'm great. How about yourself?
Wonderful.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Our next candidate is Councilwoman Kendra Brooks, candidate for City Council at large. How are you, Councilwoman?
I am well. Good afternoon.
Wonderful to have you here with us. Last but certainly not least, Nina Ahmad, candidate for City Council at large. Councilman Brian O'Neill was supposed to join us today. Not sure if he will show up, but I want to say welcome to each of you.
Thank you for having us.
Great. And we also have our stakeholders who will be joining us a little later in the segment. And that would be Michael Pearson, interim president and CEO of Public Health Management Corporation, and also Gary Mills, founder of Shoot Basketballs, Not People. We'll look forward to our stakeholders joining us just a little later. And in order to get our audience and our participants grounded, we're going to start with a true story. And let's allow that video to run.
My name is Janine Shaw, and I learned that my son, Najir Peterson, was murdered 3/10/2019 at 8:30 p.m. at night. I just had woke up, and I heard my baby running down the hall, my middle son, saying, "Get my mom, get my mom, get my mom." I'm like, "What's the matter? What's the matter?" He's talking about my bro going. Which I still didn't put together because, you know, these young men call everybody bro. And then he said, "Mom, they just killed Najir." And I'm like, no. Still didn't register. Even when homicide came to bring which I was with my sister right there, even they pulled in front of the door and brought the paper out the car. In my mind, no, my child walking around, he going to the Chinese store, he coming back. And to the day, sometimes I still live in it. I still leave my door open thinking my child will come back. But I gotta make my mind know that my baby's not coming back. I received a call in April of 2020 and was told from a detective that the murder weapon was found. Detectives from Upper Darby had called them and let them know that the weapon was in their custody. A young man who they arrested had that weapon in his possession. At that time, I was just praying to get justice for him. And when he called me, it like pushed my hopes up, like, okay, we're about to go to court soon. I could be able to face the person that murdered my baby. But I never got no return call after that. I think the city of Philadelphia had a state-of-the-art forensic lab. It will help the parents out tremendously to get some type of answer. They have these cases solved much quicker than us sitting back and going through this pain and torture.
I want to thank Janine for sharing her story with us and enter into our lightning rod session with candidates. We have one question, and each of you will have 2 minutes to answer that question as a part of our rules of engagement. So it's 2 minutes to provide a solution-oriented response, no bashing or finger pointing allowed. And I will now ask and pose the question. With gun violence plaguing the city of Philadelphia, how could Philadelphia Police Department benefit from having a state-of-the-art forensic laboratory? And what are some of the upsides for the city as a whole if a larger percentage of cases are being closed? I'm going to start with Gary in response to that question.
Well, I think that state-of-the-art facilities is a necessity here in Philadelphia. I mean, last year, I understand there was over 9,400 violent crimes from ranging with guns to without guns. And I think that if we had the tools, we could solve these crimes quicker. We can not only catch these criminals, we can give the families some closure. And I think we could send a strong message to people in Philadelphia. If you're going to commit a crime here, we have the tools, and we're going to catch you, and we're going to put you in jail. And I think it's important that people in Philadelphia can trust in the police department, and that they have the proper tools to do this. And I strongly recommend, and I understand that this department may be even understaffed at sometimes. It could take up to a year to get evidence processed. That's way too long. There's more crimes being committed during this time, and we got to take a stronger stance on that. And I think this would be tremendous. It would be a tremendous tool for the city of Philadelphia to have.
Thank you so much for that response, Gary. Nina, would you like to chime in?
Yes, so I'm a scientist, and I will be the only scientist on council if elected. And I deeply believe that technology used appropriately, it has to be used appropriately, can deliver justice in a speedy and fair manner. Our law enforcement needs tools, and we have state-of-the-art crime lab. If we could get that with cutting-edge tools and properly trained personnel, it's very critical that we have people who know how to use the technology to process evidence, which then allows the police to take the case to the DA with unimpeachable evidence to charge and place this case on the docket for justice to occur. We have to be mindful that with accountability and consequences, we craft a system that accurately brings perpetrators to justice and removes bias and has restorative justice practices included in our system of consequences, or else we're just a revolving door of the same perpetrators circling through our justice system. So I think we have an opportunity to have a brand new forensics science center. If we can I think there's been money allocated already. $65 million has been proposed, and there are proposals now for the site. I think it's critical we find those resources and we make sure we actually make this happen. Currently, there was a $5 million proposed in the current budget, and the federal government kicked in some money. So that gave us a little bit of a head start, but eventually we will need a space. As a scientist, I actually did DNA analysis at the bench. So I know what it takes to have a clean space. By clean, I mean, to make sure there's no contamination. So you need a new building that has never had anything there before, which means we have to build something new. And I am of the thought that if we have those tools, it'll allow us to get to these prosecutions much faster. So thank you for asking this very important question.
Thank you so much for that response. Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you. So I know that state-of-the-art forensic labs are very important. It's an important tool that we need for law enforcement, and it's actually something that I've been in multiple conversations with DEA Krasner about, because he's been advocating for this and this type of investments for throughout his term in office, and definitely since I've been in office. We realize that these are smart investments. These are investments in criminal justice system that we can use to help close cases and bring resolve to families, but also potentially free innocent people that have been wrongfully charged. The city is calling for new forensic lab, but also to staff up our existing system because we don't have enough staff, and a lot of our stuff is out of date. So understanding that the backlogs of the violent crime cases are not being able to be solved because we don't have this. And this further builds distrust between communities and law enforcement. So if we're able to speed up this process around forensic evidence, we'll be able to make sure the city is doing all it can do around this public health crisis around gun violence, but also rebuilding and restoring trust within communities. One example, when we toured the forensic center and some of the conversations that we had, there's a backlog of rape kits in our current forensic labs. I think they said it's 100-day wait, and that's unacceptable. So I think by making this type of investment, in equipment and staffing, we'll be able to coordinate better with state and federal agencies. We've also seen a growth in ghost guns, and the rampant use of illegal guns. And this is a proven way that we can target this type of illegal firearms that cause most of the violence in the city. So I think the best way that we can build trust is by making these investments into law enforcement, and reduce the community's impact of violent crimes by clearing more cases. And we have the potential to create even more cooperation with communities that have been most affected by gun violence when they realize that there's trust between law enforcement and communities. So I'm really excited, and I believe this is a very effective community policing strategy moving forward.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Brooks. And Gary, unfortunately, your opponent, Councilman O'Neill, is not here. Is there anything else you would want to chime in and say?
As far as I think I agree with all the people here today. This is a vital asset that Philadelphia needs. It does need it. I can't speak for why Brian O'Neill's not here, but this is a very important issue in the city of Philadelphia. Crime is increasing, and we need to have the proper tools, and we have to do it right, as the one councilwoman said. And I think this is an important issue. He should be here. That's all I can say.
I couldn't agree with you more. I want to thank each of you for joining us today. I will tell you what's driving me is I would like to see a new forensic lab, because I believe it would help bring more criminals to justice. I believe it would help as we think about Jamine's story. It would help parents, family members gain closure. It would obviously be an amazing tool to add to the toolbox of our current Philadelphia Police Department, and also to help the DA secure the evidence that he needs. So again, I thank each of you for taking the time, and we really appreciate you at We the People.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So we're going to move to the next segment of our show, which is entitled Which Side Are You On? With our stakeholders. And just as a reminder, we're going to revisit those rules of engagement. 2 minutes to provide a solution-oriented response. No bashing or finger pointing allowed. And we're going to open up with Mr. Michael Pearson.
Good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is. I welcome the opportunity, and thank you. What I will add is I have what I would call information I can't fully disclose, but I can give you some background. As you mentioned earlier, I'm interim CEO at PHMC, Public Health Management Corporation. We will be involved in the gun violence engagement with other nonprofits and sort of the back end approach. But I'm also a real estate developer, and my group, Ironstone, is one of the finalists for the forensic lab. So I want to put that out there just to level set what I'm going to say. First of all, gun violence, as we know, produces trauma. And organizations like Mr. Mills, who's going to speak later, PHMC, we want to help folks get over that trauma and the fallout of gun violence. But it also needs an economic solution, because until we provide jobs for individuals that are what I would say subjected to the pull into violence, which costs the U.S. about $50 billion a year, homicides from gun violence, right? Now, you can go and Google check me, but regardless, I don't care if it's 10 billion less. It is a cost to us economically besides the loss of life. And until we come with a solution that has economic parity, and I'm a capitalist, don't get me wrong, but we can't do a real fix until folks are gainfully employed.
Yes, yes. And what are your thoughts in terms of the candidates? Because what I'm hearing is that we need a forensic lab now. I understand an RFIs went out. I do not know all of the nuances, but I do know in terms of the public and the people, their concern is politics. Their concern is concepts with labs that it will take years to build. And the focus for the people is to support something that is state of the art, that is equipped, prepared, and ready, and we can have access as soon as possible so that we can address some of these pressing issues that we would be able to address with a state of the art forensic lab being ready to go.
Well, there's only one thing I would challenge the good candidate on in terms of does the building have to be new? To be state of the art, it does not have to be new. It just has to be fitted out so that it can receive that new technology to accommodate it. So, and again, I'm biased in that interest, right? Because I have a stake in this. So I don't want anybody to think I'm pushing one way or the other, but simply options can be presented that are both existing buildings or new buildings. And we have to be open to those types of proposals. And we can do it much faster. And I say we as the people of Philadelphia, meaning government and concerned citizens, can do this faster than what we think.
All right. Well, you have me fired up. I might need to identify some of that competition and get you guys on here. Gary, why don't you chime in?
I totally agree with what Michael has said as well, but I think it's a little bit more deeper than that. I think we need to look more expansive. Okay, now that we can potentially build these forensic labs, what about the people who's employed in those forensic labs? Do they look like us? And how can we start to develop programming for kids in the inner city and introduce them to that genre or that field of choice when it comes to forensics? So I think that's something that we can think about. That's a space that we don't dominate that I think we should be interested in dominating. But again, it takes resources like myself and Michael and other brothers and sisters that want to see things like this happen for the kids in our community. But, you know, just introducing them, to something brand new in a genre that they've never been introduced to.
Was there anything that you heard one of the candidates say that really stuck with you?
I actually like what Nina was saying as far as her scientific background. That's another space that I would like to see more programming done for kids too in the science space. We were currently just a part of a panel discussion at the Science Center, and a lot of kids that's urban or black and brown have no idea that center even exists. And they have state-of-the-art labs. So I think that's a very key piece into introducing a lot into our inner city as well.
Thank you. I want to thank both of you so much for joining us today. We have one episode left, so I'm going to talk about that episode a little. And again, thank both of you for coming out and sharing your time with us.
Thank you so much.
All right. We the People, episode 3 will air Monday, October 30th at 6 p.m. And you can catch us on Facebook Live at We the People or live on YouTube at We the People Philly. We look forward to seeing you next week. And I want to thank everyone who has joined us today. And again, be there next week for our last episode.